Daniel was a billionaire, young, brilliant, and powerful. He owned one of the largest tech companies in Nigeria. From private jets to palatial mansions, his wealth was beyond imagination, but none of it could fill the emptiness in his heart. Every woman he met seemed to want the same thing: his money, his status, his lifestyle. Not him, not the real Daniel. After one more failed relationship, he stared out his office window and whispered to himself, "If I stripped away all this, who would love me then?" That night, Daniel made a shocking decision. He handed over the daily company operations to his trusted deputy. Then, he spoke to the head of the cleaning department and requested an old uniform, a mop, and a new identity. "Just call me Dan," he said with a smile. The next morning, the billionaire disappeared. In his place, Dan the janitor showed up to mop floors, empty bins, and moved silently through the halls of the company he built. People ignored him. Some mocked him. Others didn't even notice him. But Daniel wasn't bitter. He was on a mission, searching for real love. And soon he would find it. Dan the janitor swept the corridors in silence. His back ached, his hands grew sore, but he kept going. Every step was a lesson in humility. He watched the employees rush past him, phones in hand, coffee in the other, never stop and say hello. Some giggled behind his back. "This one smells like mop water," one in turn joked. Daniel simply smiled. He had spent years being praised and worshipped. Now, he was experiencing what it meant to be overlooked. Only one person had offered him a nod that morning, an elderly security guard named Babatund. "Morning, my friend," he said warmly. "Another day to work hard, eh?" Daniel nodded, grateful for the simple kindness. He mopped the reception area, cleaned the bathrooms, and emptied trash cans, all while listening, watching. One woman in particular caught his eye, not because of beauty, but because of how she treated others. Her name was Ada. She helped the front desk receptionist pick up fallen files. She offered her chair to a visitor. She thanked the office driver for his service. She didn't notice Daniel. Not yet, but he noticed her, and his heart began to hope again. It happened during the lunch rush. Daniel was mopping the hallway near the cafeteria when someone bumped into him. The bucket tipped, spilling dirty water all over the floor in his trousers. The staff laughed. Some even stepped around the mess like it was beneath them, but not her. Ada rushed over without hesitation. "Are you okay?" she asked, kneeling beside him. She helped him steady the bucket and offered a clean tissue from her purse. "Thank you," Daniel muttered, stunned. "No one deserves to be treated like trash," she replied softly, flashing him a gentle smile. "You work hard. That matters." For the first time since he started this journey, Daniel felt seen. She didn't know his name. She didn't know he owned the building, but she treated him with respect, without expecting anything in return. After she left, Daniel sat quietly for a moment. His heart beat faster than usual, not from embarrassment, but from something else. Could she be the one? The woman who would love him without knowing who he truly was? The next day, Daniel returned to his cleaning shift early, hoping to see Ada again. By noon, she walked past him near the break room, holding her simple plastic lunchbox. She paused. "Have you eaten today?" she asked. Daniel blinked. "Not yet." Without a second thought, she opened her box and handed him half. Jollof rice, fried plantain, and 2 small pieces of chicken. "It's not much," she said, "but you need strength to keep working." Daniel took it slowly, his throat tight, not from hunger, but from emotion. He dined in 5-star restaurants around the world, but this was the most meaningful meal he had ever received. "Why are you being so kind to me?" he asked. Ada shrugged. "Because that's what people should do." She didn't ask for anything in return. Daniel watched her walk away, his heart trembling. He wasn't used to kindness without conditions. This was the first woman who didn't want his name or money, just his smile. He knew, deep inside, his disguise had brought him to something real, and he wasn't going to let it slip away. As the days passed, Daniel and Ada formed a quiet friendship. She'd wave at him in the morning, share her snacks, and even help him clean when no one was looking. But in the same building, something else was brewing. Daniel overheard 2 employees gossiping in the pantry. That Ada girl, she's wasting her time. The CEO's coming back next week. She should be aiming higher, not hanging with janitors. Another voice chimed in. She's too plain anyway. No designer shoes. No makeup. Just vibes. Daniel clenched his mop. They didn't see what he saw. Kindness, dignity, and honesty. That night, he sat in his penthouse alone. Thinking of Ada, his friend and driver, Uche asked, "Boss, are you sure about this plan? What if she finds out and feels betrayed?" Daniel replied, "Then I'll tell her the truth, because love without truth is just a lie." But he knew he had to be careful. If anyone discovered who he really was, everything could fall apart. Still, Daniel had made his choice. He'd risk it all for one woman who didn't care about his billions, only his heart. Daniel wanted to show appreciation, but he couldn't do it the billionaire way. So, on his way to work, he stopped by a roadside market and bought a small beaded bracelet. Simple but beautiful. When he saw Ada during lunch, he smiled shyly and said, "I saw this and thought of you." She looked surprised, then smiled warmly. "It's lovely." "Thank you, Dan." She slid it onto her wrist like it was gold. That one moment stayed with Daniel all day. Unlike others who flaunted designer bags and fake affection, Ada treasured something so simple. The next morning, he noticed her glancing at him with kind eyes. But behind the scenes, jealousy was building. One of the receptionists, Tonia, noticed their friendship. "Can you imagine? That cleaner thinks he can flirt with Ada," she hissed to a colleague. But Ada didn't care. To her, Dan wasn't just a janitor. He was kind, genuine, and real. Meanwhile, Daniel knew it was time to start planning, because soon he'd have to reveal who he truly was. And he didn't know if Ada's beautiful heart would break or blossom. Gossip spread fast. Tonia, the receptionist with sharp nails and sharper words, began spreading rumors about Ada. She thinks she's better than everyone, sharing food with the cleaner like they're lovers. "Please," she scoffed. Others laughed, but Ada didn't react. She focused on her work and smiled like nothing bothered her. Daniel, overhearing it all from the cleaning closet, felt anger rise in his chest. He wanted to protect her, speak up, call them out. But he couldn't. Not yet. Later that day, he found Ada sitting quietly behind the building, her eyes damp. "Rough day?" he asked. She nodded. "People can be cruel when you don't follow their script. But I don't care. I'd rather be real and alone than fake and accepted." Daniel's heart ached. He wanted to scream, "You're not alone. I'm the CEO. I'll fire them all." But he didn't. He simply sat beside her, quietly, and that silence said more than any title ever could. It rained hard that evening. As staff rushed into expensive cars and Ubers, Ada stood on the building's edge, clutching her bag, clearly stranded. Daniel watched from a distance, heart pounding. He had a private driver, waiting in an SUV around the corner, but he couldn't use it. Not yet. So he took a bold step. He approached her with an old umbrella. "You live near Surleer, right?" he asked. She nodded, surprised. "I have a bike," he lied. "I can give you a lift if you don't mind." Ada smiled, her eyes sparkling with gratitude. "Thank you, Dan. You always show up when it matters." They walked into the rain together. Two simple souls, laughing as water splashed their feet. Daniel had never felt so free, so alive. That night, they shared roasted corn from a street vendor and stories from their childhood. Ada never once asked what he owned. She only asked how he felt. And for Daniel, that was everything. News broke across the office. "The CEO is returning soon." Excitement buzzed through the staff. Everyone started dressing better, acting nicer, suddenly greeting the janitors they once ignored. But Daniel was already among them, sweeping floors, watching how fake people could become when they wanted something. Tonia, in particular, was desperate. "I heard the CEO is young and handsome," she whispered. "If he sees me, he might just fall in love." Daniel smiled under his mop handle. Meanwhile, Ada didn't change. She still packed her simple lunch, still helped the receptionist, still smiled at Dan the janitor like he was important. That day, he asked her gently, What would you do if you met someone powerful, but he wasn't who he appeared to be? She thought for a moment. It's the heart that matters, Dan. Titles fade. People don't. Daniel knew then, Ada wasn't just kind. She was wise. And soon, the biggest test of her heart would come. Daniel couldn't hold it in anymore. He invited Ada for lunch at a quiet buka near the office. She accepted, as always, cheerful, curious, warm, over plates of yam porridge and cold drinks. He looked into her eyes. Ada, he began, voice trembling, there's something I've been meaning to tell you. She paused, sensing the seriousness. What is it, Dan? He opened his mouth, but fear held him back. Would she feel betrayed? Would she think he was playing with her emotions? So instead, he said, I just wanted to thank you for being the kindest person I've ever met. Ada smiled gently. You don't need to thank me, Dan. You're my friend. Friend. The word hit his heart like a quiet drum. He wanted more. He was sure she was the one. But before he could speak again, his phone buzzed. A message from the deputy. Board meeting tomorrow. They expect the CEO to return. Time was running out. Daniel had to make a choice. Reveal the truth now, or risk losing her forever. Daniel stood in front of the mirror that night. No mop, no old uniform, just himself. In one hand was a gold-plated CEO ID badge he hadn't worn in weeks. In the other was the bracelet Ada gave him for his birthday just days earlier, a woven thread with his name beaded into it. Two sides of his life, two versions of him, and only one woman who saw the real side. He decided, tomorrow, after the board meeting, he would finally tell her. No more hiding. No more testing. He rehearsed how he would say it. I'm Daniel. I own this company. But I fell for you when I was just a janitor in your eyes. Would she cry? Would she leave? He didn't know. But one thing was clear. He was willing to risk everything, even his heart, to find out. The next morning, Daniel walked into the building, not with a mop, but in a sharp navy blue suit. Gasps filled the office. Who is that? Whispered Tonia. The head of HR nearly fainted. Sir, you're the CEO. He nodded calmly and entered the boardroom like a storm had passed. Within minutes, orders were flying. Reassign Tonia to front gate security for her disrespect to junior staff. Promote Babatund. He's been loyal and respectful to everyone. The entire office buzzed. Some praised him, others panicked. But Daniel wasn't focused on them. He was thinking about Ada. She hadn't arrived yet. So he waited, this time not as Dan the janitor, but Daniel, the man who had found love in the most unexpected way. Ada walked in that morning like every other day, calm, humble, unaware, until she saw him, Daniel, in a suit, surrounded by managers. Her steps froze. Dan, she whispered. He turned, heart pounding. Ada, I need to talk to you. Please. In a quiet room upstairs, he finally said the words. My real name is Daniel. I'm the CEO of this company. I disguised myself because I wanted to know who would love me for me. Silence. Ada looked down, her hands trembling. So everything was a lie? No, he said quickly. My name, yes. My position, yes. But not my heart. Every smile, every word, every moment with you was real. Tears welled in her eyes. And then she walked away without a word. Daniel sat alone in his office that night, the city lights behind him and a storm inside his chest. She hadn't returned. No message. No calls. Just silence. His driver, Uche, came in. Boss, maybe she just needs time. I don't want time, Daniel said, his voice breaking. I want her. He stared at the small bracelet still on his wrist. The one she gave Dan, not Daniel. He wore the title, the money, the respect, but none of it mattered without her. For the first time in his life, he didn't feel powerful. He felt powerless. And that pain was deeper than he had ever known. The next morning, Daniel arrived at the office early, hoping, praying to see Ada. She wasn't there, but on his desk lay a small envelope. His name was written on it. Not C.O. Daniel. Just Dan. He opened it with shaky fingers. Dan, I didn't walk away because of who you are. I walked away because I was scared. I never imagined that the man who cleaned the hallways could also be the man who ran the world. But now I understand you didn't lie to me. You let me see the purest version of you. And I love that man. I still do. Give me time. I'll come back when I'm ready to love both versions of you. Not just Dan, but Daniel too. Tears streamed down his face. Hope returned to his heart. She hadn't said goodbye. She said, I'll come back. The office felt different without her. Daniel passed by the corner where they used to eat lunch, the hallway where she spilled her drink and laughed. Now it was just silence, but her letter stayed with him, folded neatly in his chest pocket like a lifeline. He didn't chase her. He respected her wish. Instead, he focused on becoming a better man, one who could be both Dan and Daniel with pride. He created new policies. Equal respect for all roles, cleaner bonuses, promotion opportunities for junior staff, and most importantly, he had Ada's desk moved closer to his office with a note that read, reserved for someone who once gave a CEO half her lunch. Every day he waited, every day he hoped, and then on the seventh day, she walked back in. Ada took his hand. You're not just a CEO, Daniel. You're the janitor who listened, who shared his lunch, who never acted better than anyone else. He stared at her, overwhelmed. You still want to be with someone like me? She asked. He didn't answer with words. He held her tighter, and the silence was louder than 1,000 I love yous. The next staff meeting was different. Daniel stood before the company, not just as a boss, but as a man in love. I once wore a janitor's uniform in this building, he began. Not because I had to, but because I needed to find something real. The crowd went silent. He turned to Ada, who stood beside him with calm strength, and I found it in her. Murmurs filled the room. Tonia's jaw dropped. Baba Tun clapped first. Others followed. Daniel smiled. Let this be a reminder. Titles don't define people. Hearts do. That day, the company culture changed forever. No more pretending. No more pride games. Just truth, humility, and a surprising love story everyone now admired. Even the ones who once mocked it. Months passed. Their bond only grew stronger. One quiet evening, under a mango tree behind the company building, where they first had real conversation, Daniel knelt down. No cameras. No crowd. Just him, Ada, and a ring. Will you marry me? Not the CEO, not the billionaire, but the man who once mopped these floors and fell in love with you. Tears filled her eyes. Only if you promise to always be both. I do. She said yes. And just like that, the janitor who owned everything found the one thing money could never buy. A love that was pure. A heart that saw him before the world did. They got married in a simple ceremony. No gold-plated chairs or celebrity guests. Just love, laughter, and family. Ada wore a white gown she picked herself. Daniel wore a smile that hadn't left since the day she came back. Today, she sat beside him, not just as his wife, but as the queen of the empire. But even now, he still calls her my Ada who shared her jollof. And she still calls him Dan, because to her, that's who he'll always be. They turned the company into a place of kindness and second chances. And every new employee heard the story of the CEO who disguised himself and found the love of his life mopping floors. Because this wasn't just a love story. It was a story about truth, about humility, and the power of a pure heart. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe, and share. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from and what kindness inspired you today. Thanks for being part of this journey. Until next time, remember, a small act can change the world.